Alien girl rescues human from the abyss rift, but human finds a map predicting their meeting. Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now let's return to our main character. The wind screamed across the fractured cliffs as Caleb Miller fought the failing controls of his small survey craft. Warning lights pulsed across the cracked dashboard, casting jittery reflections over his helmet visor. The ship groaned like metal under too much weight, and for a moment he could feel the vibration through the soles of his boots. The abyss rift pulled at the hull with an invisible force, a slow, steady drag that felt like a giant hand closing around him. He tasted metal in the recycled air. The temperature dropped just enough for his breath to fog the inside of the visor. He wiped it with the back of his glove, trying to keep the horizon steady. "Hold together," he whispered, nudging the thrusters. The display flickered again, battery dipping under 30%. A small picture taped near the console, his mom smiling beside their old farmhouse, shook loose and fluttered to the floor. He reached for it, but the ship jolted, sending his hand against the chair frame. A soft hiss filled the cabin. One of the pressure seals was giving up. The rift below yawned open like a slit of darkness stretching miles into the ground, glowing at the edges with a faint violet haze. He had mapped dozens of anomalies in the past, but nothing like this. His instruments kept feeding him numbers that made no sense. Gravity drifting in waves, magnetic fields spinning like a compass tossed in circles. "Come on, just give me 5 more minutes," he muttered. The left stabilizer failed with a sharp crack. The ship rolled. Caleb slammed the emergency boosters, but it only slowed the fall, not stopped it. The rift caught him like a whirlpool. The clouds thinned, stone spires knifed upward from the depths, and he threaded through them by inches, every muscle locked tight. The bottom didn't look like a bottom at all, just more darkness folding into itself. A place light seemed uncomfortable entering. Alarm screamed in his ears. Then something snapped beneath the hull. The ship lurched sideways, scraping along a narrow ledge carved into the wall of the rift. The impact threw him against his restraints. His helmet struck the headrest hard enough to make a dull echo inside the suit. He forced a breath, tasting dust. His HUD blinked warnings he didn't have time to read. The ledge crumbled slowly under the weight of the ship, groaning like distant thunder. Caleb released the harness and crawled toward the hatch as the craft tilted. The exit door squealed when he forced it open. A gust of cold air hit him, sharp and dry, carrying the faint scent of minerals and static. The moment he stepped out, the ground beneath him shifted. He dropped to his knees, fingers digging into stone that felt strangely warm, as if it had a pulse of its own. He risked a look over the edge. The abyss stretched downward farther than his visor light could reach. A single misstep, and he'd vanish into that quiet, endless dark. His suit buzzed with a low warning. Oxygen at 60%. Power draining faster in the unstable field. Caleb steadied his breathing. Okay. One step at a time. But the stone trembled again. He froze. A thin crack snaked across the ledge beneath his boots. The rift growled, soft, deep, like something shifting far below. Caleb slowly backed away, boots scraping against dust and loose gravel. His heart punched against his ribs. The crack widened. The ledge dipped. Caleb slipped, one foot hanging over the emptiness, arms flailing to catch balance. For a heartbeat he felt weightless, a breath away from falling into the rift's silent pull. Then a line, smooth, taut, glowing faintly blue, shot out from the shadows above him and hooked onto the harness at his shoulder. The pull was firm, almost effortless, yanking him away from the collapsing edge. His boots dragged across the stone until he came to a stop against a steadier patch of ground. He gasped, turning toward the source of the line. A figure stood at the entrance of a narrow cavern carved into the rift wall, framed by the violet glow drifting up from the depths. She watched him with steady eyes that reflected the faint, bioluminescent shimmer tracing along her skin. An alien girl, tall, graceful, and impossibly calm amid the crumbling abyss. She retracted the glowing line with a small flick of her wrist. "You were about to fall," she said, voice quiet but clear, carrying easily through the cold air. Caleb swallowed, throat tight. Yeah, he managed. I noticed. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an expression he couldn't read. Then she stepped aside, the cavern behind her glowing softly with blue light. Come inside, she said. This place doesn't forgive second chances. Caleb steadied himself against the cavern wall, the rough stone warm beneath his glove, carrying a faint vibration as if the cliff itself breathed. The alien girl's silhouette shifted slightly in the soft blue glow behind her, and when she motioned inward, the gesture was calm, practiced, and oddly reassuring. He followed her into the cavern, his boots brushing over smooth rock dusted with a fine layer of shimmering particles. The air inside carried a quiet hum, like distant electrical static, though he could not see any visible machinery. As his visor adjusted to the dim light, he finally saw her clearly. Her skin carried a blue-violet sheen, patterned with faint lines of bioluminescence that pulsed in slow intervals. Her eyes reflected the cavern light in a way that made them seem almost liquid. She did not look hostile, but she did look wary. She turned slightly, enough to meet his gaze without fully facing him. Your breathing is uneven, she said. The fall frightened you. Caleb let out a breath he did not realize he was holding. The fall, the ship, the rift trying to swallow me. Take your pick. A small flicker of something crossed her face. Not quite a smile, but close. She stepped deeper into the cavern. He followed, careful not to touch anything he did not understand. The passage opened into a chamber carved with clean geometric lines that definitely did not come from weather or erosion. Soft blue light radiated from clusters of crystals mounted in the walls, illuminating a small platform and several devices that looked like a blend of stone and metal. Caleb tried not to stare, but curiosity tugged at him. His visor display blinked again. Battery down to 20%. Oxygen at 52%. He exhaled slowly. I need to find a way out of here, he murmured. Or at least find a place to send a signal. She approached one of the wall panels and placed her hand against it. Symbols flared briefly beneath her palm, then dimmed to a steady glow. A signal will not reach beyond the upper layers of the rift, she said. The field fractures transmissions. You would exhaust your systems long before help arrived. Caleb rubbed his forehead beneath the helmet. Great. So I am trapped. Not trapped, she corrected gently. Sheltered. She studied him for a moment. You are human. From the outer colonies, I assume. Earth, he said. Caleb Miller. Survey engineer. Her eyes narrowed slightly, as if testing the word. Caleb. She said it slowly, almost carefully. I am Lyra Thalen. The name flowed like a smooth note, soft but steady. Caleb nodded. Thank you for pulling me back up there. I mean it. Lyra looked toward the cavern entrance where the faint glow of the rift flickered along the edges. The abyss rift shifts without warning. The ledge would not have held you. She paused. It is not a place that welcomes travelers. Caleb scanned the chamber again, noticing subtle scratches on the stone floor, as if equipment had been dragged or rearranged many times. You live down here? He asked. Not exactly. She moved toward a second panel, fingers tracing glowing symbols that briefly sparked under her touch. My people maintain observation posts within the rift. We study fluctuations, chart safe passageways, and ensure the surface remains stable. Her tone lowered slightly, and we prevent outsiders from being consumed by it. Caleb swallowed. His throat felt tight. So I really should not be here. Correct, she said softly. But you are. She turned to face him fully now, her expression unreadable but not unkind. And since you are here, you must recover your strength. The rift exhausts unadapted bodies quickly. She motioned toward a flat stone seat near the crystals. Caleb hesitated, then lowered himself onto it. The surface felt warm, steady, almost comfortable. He removed one glove, flexing his fingers in the calm air. Lyra stepped a little closer, maintaining a respectful distance. Your suit is unstable, she noted. The energy fields outside have disrupted its systems. Caleb nodded. Yeah, I can feel the battery draining. If it drops too low, I lose heat, pressure balance, navigation, everything. Lyra tilted her head, studying the flickering. Lights on his forearm display. I may be able to help stabilize your systems temporarily. Caleb blinked. You can do that. I would not offer if I could not. She stepped toward a crystalline console, the glow shifting subtly beneath her hand. He watched her in silence, realizing that even in this strange place, surrounded by forces he did not understand, he felt safer than he had minutes earlier on the ledge. The quiet hum deepened. The blue light warmed. Caleb exhaled, steady for the first time since the crash. "Lyra," he said finally, voice softer than he intended. She glanced back at him, eyes catching the light like polished glass. "Yes, Caleb. Thank you for not letting me fall." Her expression shifted, a small, almost imperceptible softening. "The rift chooses many things," she murmured. "But who we save is still our choice." Caleb watched as Lyra adjusted the crystalline console, her hands moving with a steady precision that made the strange technology seem almost natural. Soft blue light pulsed under her fingertips, rising and falling like a slow heartbeat. The hum in the chamber shifted, growing warmer, and his suit display flickered back to life with more stable readings. Oxygen flow steadied. Core temperature stopped dropping. Battery levels climbed by a small but comforting margin. He let out a quiet breath. "I do not know what you just did," he said softly, "but it helped." Lyra stepped back from the console, the light fading beneath her palm. "Your systems were struggling against the rift's pressure," she said. "I tuned your suit stabilizer to match the local field. It will not last forever, but it will give you time." She studied his visor for a moment, then added, "You humans rely heavily on your technology. Down here, you must learn to rely on yourself as well." Caleb managed a tired smile. "Working on it." The cavern trembled faintly, dust drifting from the ceiling. The sound echoed down the narrow tunnels like a distant sigh. Lyra's gaze lifted toward the vibration. "The rift is shifting. We should move deeper inside. The outer ledges may change again." She retrieved a compact light sphere from a shelf, its glow steady and soft, then motioned for him to follow. Caleb rose, stretching stiff muscles as he walked after her into the next passage. The air cooled slightly, carrying a scent like wet stone mixed with something faintly metallic. The light sphere illuminated the walls, revealing smooth carvings that spiraled in patterns he did not recognize. "Did your people make these?" he asked. Lyra brushed her fingers lightly over the stones. "Not exactly. The rift forms new caverns as it shifts. We only guide the structure. Shape what would otherwise collapse." Caleb frowned behind his visor. "You shape the rift?" "Only small parts," she corrected. "The rest belongs to forces older than either of our worlds." They continued along the corridor until it widened into another chamber, this one larger, with several raised platforms and more equipment arranged carefully around a central stone table. Caleb paused when he noticed a faint glow on the table's surface, like a projection waiting to be awakened. Lyra noticed his look but said nothing, walking toward a storage alcove. She retrieved a small container and a folded thermal cloth, placing them gently on the nearest platform. "You should rest," she said. "Your energy levels are still unstable." Caleb shook his head. "I am fine. I just need to figure out how to climb out of here without falling into an endless pit." Her expression softened. "There is no climbing out. Not the way you came." Caleb frowned. "Then how do you get in and out?" "There are paths," she said, "but they shift with the rift. Outsiders cannot navigate them without guidance." He exhaled, the weight of the situation pressing down on him. His visor dimmed slightly as he sat on the platform. Lyra unfolded the thermal cloth and placed it beside him. "This will help regulate your body temperature," she said. He touched the fabric. It felt warm, almost alive. "Thank you," he murmured. "Again." She gave a small nod, then moved to another console. Caleb watched her for a moment. The way she moved was careful but not afraid. Confident but not unkind. She checked instruments made of crystal and metal, adjusting their angles until faint symbols glowed across their surfaces. "Are those sensors?" Caleb asked. Lyra glanced back. They tracked the rift's fluctuations. Without them, this chamber would not be safe. He looked around, noticing small markers etched into the walls, glowing faintly. "You live with this every day?" "My people have lived with the rift for generations," she said quietly. "It is dangerous, yes, but it is also part of who we are." Caleb leaned forward slightly. "Why risk saving me then, if outsiders are not supposed to be here?" Lyra hesitated. A rare pause. She approached the stone table and rested her hand gently on its surface. "Because you were falling," she said finally, "and because sometimes the rift takes." It does not always need to take everything. Caleb absorbed that, his chest tightening with a feeling he could not quite explain. The soft hum of the cavern filled the silence between them. Then, with a quiet gesture, Lyra activated the projection on the table. Lines of light rose slowly into the air, forming a three-dimensional map of the rift's interior. Caleb straightened, his breath catching. The map was intricate, layered, glowing with shifting currents and pathways. But what drew his eye was a small symbol pulsing near one edge. It looked almost exactly like the outline of his crashed survey ship. He stared at it, heart thudding. "Lyra," he whispered, "why is my ship on your map?" She did not answer at first. Her expression remained calm, but her eyes held something deeper, something that made the air feel suddenly still. "Because," she said softly, "you were always meant to reach this place." Caleb stared at the glowing symbol that mirrored the outline of his crashed survey craft, its light pulsing in quiet rhythm as if acknowledging him. The map hovered above the stone table, layers shifting like drifting currents of smoke, revealing deeper corridors of the abyss rift. His pulse thudded in his ears. "Meant to reach this place?" he repeated. "Lyra, I did not even know this rift existed until a week ago. My mission was routine mapping, not destiny." Lyra stepped closer, her steps soundless on the smooth floor. The soft blue glow along her skin brightened for an instant as she placed her hand beneath the projection, causing several pathways to realign. "Your people chart only what they can measure," she said calmly. "But the rift is not measured. It is felt." Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. "Well, I was definitely feeling something when my ship almost fell apart." She tilted her head slightly. "You joke to steady yourself." "It is either that," he replied, "or panic quietly." The faint, almost invisible curve at the corner of her lips told him she understood the attempt at humor. She gestured toward the map. "Look here." Lines of light shifted to form a spiral pathway leading toward the location where his symbol pulsed. "This is a convergence route," she explained. "A place where the rift's currents align. My people have tracked these patterns for generations." Caleb frowned. "But that does not explain why my ship is on your map." Lyra hesitated a moment, her expression unreadable. She touched another panel, and a slower, older projection emerged beneath the first, its lines less precise, carved into faint etchings. "This record is ancient," she said. "It was created by our ancestors when they first found the rift. They believed certain travelers would one day enter this place. Travelers from beyond our world." Caleb felt his breath catch. "Humans, not named," she said softly, "but described as beings who came from a distant star, with fragile bodies but determined hearts." He stared at the etchings. The symbol was not perfectly identical, but the resemblance was undeniable. His chest tightened with a feeling he could not name. "Lyra," he murmured, "what exactly is this?" "A prophecy." She shook her head slowly. "Not a prophecy. A pattern. A prediction made from observing how the rift behaves. Some believe that if someone followed the signs, they would arrive during a time of great change." Caleb let out a breath and leaned against the table. "I am nobody special. I am not chosen for anything." "Perhaps not chosen," she said, "but present. And presence matters here." Before he could respond, the cavern shuddered, a deeper vibration than before, rolling through the stone like a low thunder wave. Dust drifted from the ceiling in soft bursts. Lyra's eyes lifted sharply. "We must move. The rift is shifting faster than expected." She grabbed the light sphere and motioned for him to follow. Caleb stepped away from the map, but the pulsing symbol lingered in his vision like an afterimage. They moved quickly down a narrow tunnel, the walls rippling with faint luminescent lines that responded to Lyra's presence. Caleb kept one hand against the stone for balance as the ground tilted slightly beneath them. "Is this normal?" he asked. "The rift rarely warns twice," she replied. "We must reach a stable chamber." The tunnel opened into a high cavern where large crystal structures grew upward like frozen lightning strikes. The air hummed with stronger energy. Lyra touched one of the crystals, and the entire formation dimmed to a steady glow. "This place is safer," she said. Caleb exhaled and lowered himself onto a smooth rock. "Lyra," he said quietly, "if your people expected someone like me, does that mean others came before?" She paused, her gaze drifting to the crystal formations. "There are stories," she said. "Stories of travelers who entered the rift, and found paths no one else could see. Did they survive? He asked. Lyra looked at him with an expression he had not yet seen from her, something gentle and distant. Some did, she said. Some did not. But all of them changed something. Caleb swallowed, the caverns seeming to quiet around them. And you think I am one of those travelers? Lyra stepped closer, the violet-blue shimmer along her skin reflecting softly against the crystal. I think, she said carefully, that the rift brings people together for reasons that are not always understood at first. And I think you being here is not an accident. Caleb held her gaze, the hum of the rift settling into a soft, steady rhythm around them. For the first time since the crash, he felt less like a lost pilot, and more like someone standing at the beginning of something larger than himself. Then, he whispered, "What happens next?" Lyra glanced toward the deeper tunnels, her voice quiet but steady. "Next," she said, "we try to survive what the rift is becoming." The energy within the crystal chamber softened into a steady vibration, like a quiet heartbeat running through the stone. Caleb let the calm settle over him for a moment, steadying his breath. Lyra moved to the center of the cavern, setting the light sphere on a raised ledge. Its glow radiated outward, brushing against the jagged crystal formations and causing them to shimmer faintly. "The rift is entering a shift cycle," she said. "It happens rarely, but when it does, the inner pathways can change quickly." Caleb adjusted his suit, checking the readings that hovered faintly across his visor. The stabilizer Lyra had realigned was holding, though the field indicators still flickered like uncertain flames. "How long do we have?" he asked. "There is no exact measure," she replied. "Minutes, perhaps hours. The rift does not obey predictable intervals." Caleb exhaled slowly. "So we could be safe for a while, or the floor could move out from under us any moment." Lyra considered his words. "Yes, that is an accurate description." She said it with a calm that made the danger feel strangely less immediate. Caleb rubbed his palms together, trying to fight the cold that kept creeping into his suit. The chamber hummed again, a low sound that rippled through the floor like a distant wave. He looked toward Lyra. "How do you stay calm in a place like this?" She lowered her gaze slightly. "This is home to my people. The rift may shift, but it has patterns we learn over time. You humans read the sky. We read the stone." Caleb nodded, the simplicity of her explanation hitting him with unexpected clarity. She approached one of the larger crystal structures and ran her fingers gently along its glowing surface. The formation responded with a faint pulse of light. "This chamber stabilizes field currents," she explained. "It is one of the few places where the energy quiets enough for us to rest." Caleb stepped closer, careful not to touch anything without caution. "And you brought me here because it is safe." "I brought you here because it is where you needed to be," she said. Her eyes on him held a softness that made his breath falter for just a moment. The cavern trembled again, though lighter this time, like a settling exhale. Lyra looked upward, reading the vibrations with a practiced ear. Then she turned back to Caleb. "Your body temperature is still too low," she noted. "Your suit's internal heater is weakened. You need to recover." She took the thermal cloth from earlier and placed it in his hands. "Use this." The fabric's warmth spread through Caleb's fingers as he wrapped it around himself. "This stuff is incredible," he murmured. "It holds heat better than anything we have on Earth. It adapts to the wearer," she explained. "It responds to need." Caleb tilted his head. "Kind of like you." Lyra blinked once, as if processing the statement, then turned away to check a nearby panel. For a moment, the only sound was the soft hum circling the chamber. Caleb sat on a smooth stone outcrop, letting the warmth seep slowly through his suit. His breathing evened. The ache in his muscles eased. The tension in his shoulders loosened. Lyra remained near the crystal panel, her fingers tracing quiet adjustments across its surface. Caleb watched her, struck by how composed she looked. Even in a place that defied every rule he understood. "Lyra," he said softly. She turned toward him. "Yes, Caleb. If the rift is shifting more than expected, does that mean we are in danger?" She stepped closer, the light catching the faint shimmer along her skin. "Danger is not the right word," she said. "The rift does not intend harm. It simply changes. And we must change with it." Caleb nodded slowly. "You know, back home, people say things like fate or destiny when they do not know how to explain something." "And what do you say?" she asked. He sighed. "I say most things are coincidence." Or luck? Lyra studied him for a long moment. Then perhaps, she said softly, you are experiencing your first exception. Caleb felt the chamber's hum shift again, deeper and more resonant. Lyra looked toward the far tunnel. The next change is coming, she said. We should prepare. He rose to his feet, adjusting the thermal cloth around his suit. Prepare for what? Lyra faced him fully now, her voice steady and calm. To see what the rift wants to show us next. The hum inside the crystal chamber deepened until it felt like a gentle vibration running through Caleb's boots, rising and falling in slow waves. Lyra stood near the far tunnel, her posture steady, her eyes fixed on the faint pulses of light moving along the stone walls. The glow shifted in color, from blue to a muted lavender, like the rift inhaling before another change. Caleb tightened the thermal cloth around his suit. The warmth helped, but the cold drifting through the air still felt strange, as if it moved with intention rather than temperature alone. You said the rift wants to show us something, he said quietly. How does a place decide that? Lyra turned her head slightly, listening to the vibrations in the stone. It is not a decision, she said. It is resonance. When the rift shifts, it reveals paths that align with those who walk inside it. Caleb let out a soft, incredulous laugh. So it is reading us. In a way, she replied. It reflects what is needed, not what is wanted. She motioned toward the tunnel as the lavender glow steadied into a soft, welcoming light. Come. The path is open. Caleb followed her cautiously. The air inside the tunnel carried a faint metallic scent mixed with cool mineral vapor. The walls glowed with tiny crystalline threads that responded to Lyra's presence, brightening with each step she took. When Caleb walked beside her, the glow dimmed a little, as if sensing he was unfamiliar. It reacts to you, he observed. Lyra nodded. The rift knows the energy of my people. It has known us for centuries. Caleb touched the wall lightly with his gloved hand. The threads flickered, then stabilized. What does it think of me? It is curious, she said, glancing at him. Your presence changes how it responds. He huffed softly. I'm not sure if that is a compliment. The tunnel opened into a long corridor carved with more deliberate precision than the previous chambers. Here, the stone floors were smoother, shaped by hands rather than natural shifts. Soft light rose from patterned ridges etched into the ground. The sight made Caleb slow his steps. This looks built, he murmured. Not grown. Lyra stepped ahead of him, her eyes scanning the carved walls. It is built. This place is old, even to my people. We call these the anchor halls. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Anchors for what? Memory, she said. And correction. He frowned slightly. Correction? Lyra stopped near a stone panel etched with swirling patterns. The panel lit beneath her hand, revealing faint images. Caleb leaned in, trying to see clearly through the dim light. The shapes resembled starfields, pathways, and unfamiliar symbols. Then he noticed one detail that made his breath hitch. A symbol shaped like a small craft, similar to the outline of his survey ship, etched into the stone long before he ever arrived. There it is again, he whispered. My ship, or something close to it. Lyra turned toward him, her expression unreadable. This hall records disruptions. Moments when the rift senses changes in the world above. It marks what it detects. Caleb shook his head slowly. My ship is not a disruption. It is barely held together by duct tape and old parts. Lyra stepped closer. It marked not the ship, she said softly, but the arrival. Caleb's chest tightened. Lyra, I need to understand what you are saying. Your presence fits a pattern the rift has been preparing for, she explained. The map, the symbols, the alignment of the energy currents. You entered during a moment when the rift opened itself. That is not common. Caleb paced a few steps, trying to make sense of the swirling lines of light on the panel. So you think I was meant to come here? I think, she said slowly, that your arrival is connected to something my people have waited for. Something we did not fully understand. Caleb turned toward her. And what is that? Lyra looked down the length of the anchor hall, her expression touched with something distant and thoughtful. A bridge, she whispered. A moment when two paths from different worlds converge. A moment like this. Caleb felt the air shift around them as the hall vibrated gently, the stone beneath their feet warming for a brief second before cooling again. Lyra touched the panel once more. The rift is guiding us to the next chamber, she said. What is in the next chamber? He asked. Lyra met his gaze, her voice steady but quiet. Answers, but also choices. The corridor lights brightened, illuminating a doorway ahead that had not been opened before. Caleb swallowed, feeling both apprehension and an odd sense of anticipation. Then I guess we go, he said. Lyra nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. Together. The doorway ahead brightened as if acknowledging their approach, its edges outlined in a gentle lavender glow that pulsed in steady intervals. Caleb hesitated a moment before stepping forward, feeling the temperature shift with each footstep. The air inside the new chamber was cooler, carrying a crisp mineral scent that reminded him faintly of mountain caves back on Earth. Lyra walked beside him, her steps confident but quiet, her eyes scanning the space as if reading patterns invisible to him. The chamber was circular, large enough for the ceiling to vanish into faint shadow. In the center stood a wide platform carved from a single piece of stone, its surface inlaid with glowing threads that formed a swirling pattern. Caleb slowed. What is this place? Lyra approached the platform with careful reverence. We call it the Chamber of Echoes. It reveals what the rift remembers. Caleb raised an eyebrow. The rift remembers? All energy leaves an imprint, she said. This chamber helps us see the shapes of those imprints. As she extended her hand, the platform stirred to life, threads of light rising into the air like strands of mist. They twisted and combined until faint images formed, shifting and shimmering. Caleb stepped closer, his breath catching when he recognized one of the shapes. His own ship, hovering above the platform, outlined in soft light. The image flickered, replaying the moment it entered the rift, the vessel tumbling in the gravitational currents, his desperate course corrections, the near fall into the abyss. Lyra watched him carefully. The rift shows what touched it, not to frighten, but to reveal truth. Caleb swallowed. Watching his own crash from an outside view was unsettling, like witnessing a memory he never lived through. The image shifted again. This time it showed Lyra, standing on the ledge at the precise moment she sent the glowing line to catch him. Caleb stared, his chest tightening. It saw you save me. Lyra nodded. The rift acknowledges acts that alter its flow. The light twisted again, forming a third image. One Caleb did not recognize. A symbol. A swirling shape surrounded by 3 faint lines. He frowned. I have seen that symbol on your map. Lyra stepped forward, a trace of uncertainty crossing her face. This symbol marks convergence, a moment when paths meet and influence each other. Caleb felt a slow realization settling in. That symbol was next to my ship. And next to you. She held his gaze. It means our paths were aligned before either of us knew. Caleb exhaled, unsure how to process that. Lyra, I did not choose this. I did not choose to be here. Nor did I choose for you to arrive, she said softly. But choice is not the only force that shapes a life. Before he could answer, the chamber vibrated, stronger than before, but not threatening. The lights on the platform shifted from lavender to a warm gold, the threads beginning to weave into a new pattern. Lyra watched intently. The rift is responding to your presence again. It is creating a path. Caleb blinked. A path to where? Lyra turned toward the far wall, where a previously solid surface now showed faint outlines of an opening. Out of the lower chambers, she said. Toward a place we rarely go. Caleb stepped beside her, studying the forming doorway. Why would it show that now? Lyra's voice lowered. Because it wants us to see something. And because it knows you cannot return the way you came. Caleb felt the hum settle around them, warm and steady. A strange calm washed over him, as if the rift itself was nudging them forward. He glanced at Lyra. Then we go together. Lyra held his gaze for a moment, her expression steady but touched with something quiet and sincere. Yes, she said. Together. The newly formed doorway glowed with a soft golden outline, as if the stone itself breathed and parted to reveal what waited beyond. Caleb stepped toward it slowly, feeling the gentle warmth radiating from the opening. The air carried a subtle electric pulse, a quiet signal that the rift intended this path for them. Lyra walked beside him, her eyes reflecting the shifting light as she studied the corridor ahead. This route has not opened in many cycles, she said quietly. It responds only during times of significant change. Caleb gave a small huff of disbelief. So either I am incredibly lucky or incredibly out of place. Lyra paused. turning her head just enough for the light to catch the soft shimmer along her skin. Not out of place, she murmured. Aligned. They moved together into the newly revealed passage. The walls were smoother here, almost polished, with soft threads of pale light curling through the stone like veins. The temperature shifted, warmer than the previous chambers. Caleb felt his suit respond, adjusting pressure and temperature automatically. The stabilizer Lyra had tuned continued to hold, but he could feel a faint tug in the air, like a gravitational drift trying to nudge him forward. Do you feel that? He asked. Lyra nodded. The rift is guiding us. It is subtle, but it influences movement through this corridor. Caleb touched the wall lightly, feeling a faint vibration. It feels like a heartbeat. Many describe it that way, she said. My people believe the rift has its own awareness, not intelligence as you would define it, but an instinct to connect what needs connecting. Her words lingered in the air as they continued forward. The corridor widened into a long hall filled with slowly rising mist. Crystals embedded in the walls emitted a warm amber glow that reflected off the drifting vapor, creating a soft haze that danced in wave-like motions. Caleb slowed, the sight drawing him into a sense of quiet awe. This place is beautiful, he said softly. Lyra watched the moving mist with an unreadable expression. It is called the Hall of Currents. It reveals possibilities that have not yet taken shape. Caleb raised an eyebrow. Possibilities? As in the future? Not the future, she corrected gently. The paths that lead to it. At the far end of the hall stood another platform, smaller than the one in the Chamber of Echoes, but carved with the same intricate patterns. Threads of mist curled above it, forming vague shapes that shifted as if listening. Caleb stepped closer, feeling the air cool slightly around the platform. The mist swirled faster, responding to his presence. Lyra watched him with a calm, steady gaze. Place your hand above the center, she said. The hall will show what your presence brings. Caleb hesitated. What if I do not want to know? Then it will show only what it needs to, she said softly. He inhaled slowly, then extended his hand above the glowing center of the platform. The mist reacted immediately, forming spirals that rose and twisted into delicate patterns. At first, the shapes were indistinct, almost fluid. Then they sharpened into clear outlines. Caleb's breath caught as he saw himself, standing beside Lyra. Not in this hall, but somewhere brighter, above ground, under an open sky carved with unfamiliar stars. The image shimmered. Lyra stood beside him in the vision, her posture steady, her gaze calm, as if she were guiding him through something vast and unknown. Another shape appeared behind them, a large structure, perhaps a ship or a gateway, its design unlike anything he recognized. Caleb stared, unsure whether he was witnessing a possibility or an interpretation. Lyra, he whispered. What is this? She stepped closer, her voice barely above a breath. It is what might be. A path the rift considers viable. Caleb lowered his hand slowly, and the mist dissolved back into gentle, drifting currents. He turned to Lyra, his mind wrestling with the weight of what he had seen. Does this mean I am supposed to help you? Or your people? Lyra met his gaze, something soft and conflicted flickering in her eyes. It means your presence reaches farther than you realize. And it means the rift believes we are not meant to walk separate paths. Caleb felt the chamber grow still, the hum shifting into a low, steady resonance. Lyra, he said quietly, are you saying this was destined? She took one slow step toward him, the soft amber light outlining the delicate glow of her skin. Not destined, she whispered. Recognized. The hall vibrated again, gentle and warm, as if confirming her words. And for the first time, Caleb felt the rift was not just a place. It was a witness, and it was watching them together. The Hall of Currents grew quiet again, the drifting mist settling into soft curls that clung to the edges of the chamber like a fading dream. Caleb lowered his hand from the platform, the lingering warmth dissolving slowly from his fingertips. Lyra stood beside him, her expression touched with something gentle and almost solemn. The golden glow along the walls pulsed once, as if signaling that the vision had concluded, and then dimmed into a steady amber. Caleb exhaled, trying to steady the rising swirl of thoughts. If the rift showed that vision, he said quietly, does that mean it expects us to follow it? Lyra stepped forward, her gaze drifting toward the far end of the hall where the stone began to shift again, revealing the faint outline of yet another passage. "The rift does not expect," she murmured. "It reveals. What we choose after that is our own." Caleb nodded slowly, the weight of her words settling deeper into him than he expected. The sense of destiny he had felt earlier was still there, but gentler now, shaped not by pressure, but by possibility. As they walked toward the new corridor, the chamber's hum followed them, softer than before, like a farewell. The next passage opened into a narrow tunnel that ascended gradually. The stone was smoother here, shaped by long ages and steady energy currents. The air grew warmer with each step, and Caleb felt his suit adjust, matching the rising temperature. Lyra walked slightly ahead, her steps soundless, her posture alert but calm. "Where does this lead?" he asked. "To the threshold," she replied. "It is a place between the rift and the surface. A boundary passage." Caleb felt a flicker of hope. "So there is a way out." Lyra paused, turning her head slightly. "Yes, but it is not without consequence." He frowned. "What kind of consequence?" She continued walking, choosing her words with care. "If you cross the threshold, the rift releases its connection to you. It will no longer guide you, no longer protect you." Caleb swallowed. "And for you?" Lyra did not answer immediately. When she finally spoke, her voice was quiet. "For my people, the threshold marks the limit of our duty. Beyond it, we are expected to return. To remain is to abandon the role we were born to fulfill." The meaning hit him slowly, like cold air settling into his lungs. "So if you walk past it, you cannot go back." She met his gaze fully now, her eyes shimmering with the faint glow of the tunnel light. "Yes, to cross with you is to become something my people do not have a name for." Caleb's chest tightened, not from fear, but from the quiet sincerity in her voice. They continued upward, the tunnel widening as the ceiling lifted. Ahead, a soft white glow appeared, diffused and gentle, like early morning light filtered through fog. The threshold. As they approached, the air grew still. The white glow washed softly over the stone, revealing a high archway carved with flowing lines that resembled both roots and starlight. Beyond the arch lay an open cavity filled with quiet fog that shimmered with faint iridescent hues. Caleb felt a subtle pull, as if the rift itself was offering him a final piece of guidance. Lyra stood beside him, her gaze lingering on the archway for a long moment before turning toward him. "This is where you choose," she said. "To return above. To continue your life. The rift has shown you enough that you can find your path." Caleb looked at the arch, then back at her. "And you? What is your choice?" Lyra's expression softened, a gentle ache behind her calm eyes. "My duty is here. My people expect me to remain within the rift. To guide, to watch, to protect. But if you walked with me," he whispered, "you would leave that behind." She nodded once. "Yes." Caleb stepped closer, the white light reflecting softly on his visor. "Lyra," he said, voice steady but quiet. "Everything down here has led us to the same place. Every map, every path, every vision. And none of it mattered until you pulled me from that ledge." She held his gaze, her breath soft and even. "Caleb," she murmured, "the rift brought you here for a reason. But the reason is not me." "Maybe not," he said. "But I would not have found any of this without you." For a long moment, the chamber fell into a silence deeper than the lack of sound. A silence shaped by choice. Lyra looked at the arch again, then slowly extended her hand toward him. "If I cross with you," she said softly, "my life changes forever." Caleb reached out, his gloved hand hovering just inches from hers. "Then change it with me." She hesitated only a heartbeat before placing her hand in his. The moment their hands touched, the white fog swirled gently around them, as if acknowledging their decision. The threshold brightened, opening fully. Caleb tightened his grip just enough for her to feel it. Lyra inhaled softly, then whispered, "Together." And with the quiet blessing of the rift, they stepped through the light.